She told me this location on Providence Road has seen more than 20 customers with stolen identities this year, including one unique case. The MoDOT study found in 2012 the Columbia Regional Airport supported 745 jobs and generated more than $87 million. Now this is parsley, but it's also 35 grams. This same amount of marijuana could cost a person a $1,000 fine or a year in prison. If someone sees an unauthorized vehicle in a handicapped spot like this one, they can use the app to take pictures and send them to local law enforcement. This year, the city will take in less revenue as part of its fines and court fees general fund. Regardless, input is still needed to make decisions about future routes and stops like this one. Unfortunately, he tells me several people pressed 1 after the initial calls went out. Potential EPA cuts would decrease annual production by nearly 25%, down to less than 1.3 billion gallons. Online open enrollment for health insurance launched at the beginning of the month, giving consumers the chance to apply for coverage. Since the Health Care Act is so different than previous coverage in the U.S., the legislation came with personal support for those signing up online. That help is called a navigator. Their role? To guide people through the maze of insurance options. The feds require navigators to take just 20 hours of online training. But in Missouri, consumers face bigger hurdles. After legislation signed by the governor, the law mandates additional state training for navigators and what they tell consumers. Here in Missouri, if you want to be a navigator, get ready for a lengthy process, including an online test and as much as a $50 fee. And once you have that license, as this shows, Missouri is one of 8 states that says navigators cannot offer advice on what health care policy is best for you. An influential leader of the president's health care measure wrote me, saying these restrictions are a big mistake. Approximately a dozen states have enacted legislation that establishes burdensome requirements that effectively prevent many of the organizations designated in the statute from being navigators and prevents navigators from carrying out the duties the Affordable Care Act requires them to carry out, even if they overcome these burdens. But Matt Wills of the Missouri Republican Party says the strict limitations are good for people's privacy.
The fact that this law was passed by the legislature saying, hey, look, these folks we need to know who they are and we need to know what they have access to is definitely a good thing. And I think it's for the overall good. I think it's a necessary step that has been taken.
There are 2 federally funded navigator organizations in mid-Missouri available to insurance consumers, Primaris and the Missouri Association of Area Agencies on Aging. Jeremy Malarski is the Navigator Program Manager for Primaris and says the Navigator program is crucial for those who are uninsured.
If you're uninsured, that's a very tough way to live. You know, when you're uninsured, when you don't have health insurance, you know, bankruptcy could be just around the corner with some kind of disaster that happens to you or your family. It's not sustainable. While enrollment opened earlier this month, healthcare.gov is still glitchy. Malarski says waiting a while to enroll might be your best bet. Taylor Barth, KOMU 8 News, Columbia. I spoke with an employee from Jackson Hewitt Tax Service today. She told me this location on Providence Road has seen more than 20 customers with stolen identities this year, including one unique case. The waiting room at Jackson Hewitt was empty today as the deadline to file taxes is over, but there still may be one concern.
Thanks for calling Jackson Hewitt. This is Cindy. How can I help you?
Cynthia Pelt has worked for the company for 13 years, but this year was particularly different. Pelt says she's noticed a big increase in the number of customers suffering from identity theft, including one unusual case.
There was a 2-year-old little boy that his identity was stolen this year when the parents came in, so that was really scary to see identity theft not only be adults but even as young as a 2-year-old.
Many people are unaware their identity has been stolen until they come in to file their tax returns, and the IRS will only inform you by mail.
At that point, you get that letter from the IRS that does say somebody has already filed a tax return using your information, or somebody has reported it to an employer that you never worked for. And so at that point, you can work with the IRS, but it's a long, drawn-out process to get that fixed.
Harrison attributes the increase in identity theft to more internet use and giving out personal information online.
I mean, you just need to use caution. You need to make sure that you have the most up-to-date spyware, malware protection on your computer. Make sure that you are very careful with the websites that you visit. Any of those unsolicited emails that you get, just go ahead and delete them.
Harrison says consumers should always research a tax company before using its services. For more ways to keep yourself protected, visit our website at KOMU.com. Reporting live in Columbia, Taylor Barth, KOMU 8 News. The Mile High City has reached a new high. Customers have been rolling into Colorado pot shops since the drug became legal for recreational use January 1st. Starbud's owner Brian Rudin has seen a large increase in business since getting his recreational license.
I was expecting back in December for our volume of business to maybe double. In my wildest dreams, I thought it would triple. For the month of January, it went up tenfold. It's backed off now that the hype has settled down a little bit, but we're still running numbers 5 times what they were last year.
Rudin says his shop sees from 100 to 200 people a day, and 1 in 4 of those customers are from out of state. All adults in Colorado can now purchase up to an ounce of marijuana, but if you're planning to travel from out of state, you'll only be able to purchase about a quarter of an ounce. Colorado voters' decision to legalize the green commodity is paying off in some aspects. All recreational sales are taxed, and that money will go toward education and infrastructure.
Just over the course of January, over $100,000 is going to the state, and I'm just one small store. So this is a huge economic boom for Colorado.
It's just bringing it out of the closet, into the light. Let's all look at it. Let's regulate it, tax it, make sure it's quality, label it, control it. I don't know what state wouldn't benefit from that.
Ann Toney is a private attorney in Denver and a member of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Based on her past experience with clients, she hopes marijuana legalization will put an end to the controversy of its use.
Most of them were so afraid that anyone knew they smoked pot. They were teachers, insurance salesmen, realtors. They would confide in me privately, well, of course they smoke pot, but they don't want anyone to know it because it might harm them. The social stigma.
Much like alcohol, Colorado state law prohibits smoking in public, driving high, and all consumers must be 21 or older. But with easy accessibility comes the concern for a higher use among kids.
With the widespread availability of it, I mean, clearly it's going to be out there, it's more available for our kids. The messages surrounding marijuana from the industry have been unfortunately, that it is a, organic, natural, healthy product.
Smart Colorado is an organization working to protect children from the harmful effects of marijuana. Carboni says ingesting marijuana at a young age is harmful to the cognitive growth of kids.
It's not a harmless, benign product for adolescents in particular. And that's the message, I think, that has to get out to people as the marijuana industry is, rolling out their commercialization. Unfortunately, the kids and the parents of kids, I think it's important to educate them.
As for Missouri, efforts to legalize marijuana are underway but have met much resistance. Taylor Barth, KOMU 8 News, Denver. Drivers have been on the road for a month since the city decided to suspend its red light program. While the red light cameras are still flashing, tickets aren't being mailed. That's because Columbia's ordinance conflicts with state law. In January 2012, the Eastern District Court of Appeals ruled ticketing a vehicle owner with a red light violation is legal. This case prompted Columbia to change its red light ordinance in August, shifting the blame from the driver of the vehicle to the owner of the vehicle. But last month, the Eastern District Court of Appeals reversed its former ruling in a case involving the city of Ellisville. This decision found that ticketing the owner conflicts with state law.
The city ordinance has used some wording to try to make it seem like it's a non-moving violation, but the court essentially found that no matter how you word it, they are prosecuting red light violations against the owner of the vehicle instead of a driver.
Since Columbia's ordinance mirrors Ellisville's, Columbia decided to suspend its red light prosecutions.
Our ordinance is very similar to theirs, where we don't use a picture of the driver anymore, and it's also a non-moving violation. We tried to make it almost like a parking ticket. You go after the driver, or you go after the owner of the vehicle.
So why did they switch to the more sticky legal enforcement of ticketing the owner? Simply because it's easier to track down the car instead of figuring out who was driving it.
I think that is definitely the change was made with the purpose of making it easier to prosecute, and probably also making it more likely that someone's going to just pay the ticket and not contest it, because they get the impression that from the ordinance, nothing's going to go on their driver's record. There's no points.
The revenue has been rolling in since Columbia cameras went live in 2009. From 2010 to 2012, the city has issued more than 4,000 red light tickets, which generated more than $100,000 in revenue. This year, the city will take in less revenue as part of its fines and court fees general fund. Now, this decrease also comes at the same time that the city is no longer collecting red light tickets. While the Eastern Appeals Court had two rulings that stand at odds, the legality of whether a city can ticket an owner could soon head to the Supreme Court. And if the High Court allows cities to once again ticket vehicle owners, Columbia will be able to send them the tickets it's been setting aside during the suspension.
I mean, if the ordinance that we currently have is found to be good law, then we'll pick right back up where we left off and reissue summonses and pick up all those old cases. We're currently reaching out to other cities that are working on their ordinances to see if there's anything that they're going to do that we might be able to implement here.
If ticketing an owner remains illegal, then Columbia will likely go back to its original ordinance of going after the driver. For now, the city is still snapping pictures and collecting tickets and hoping that it can send them out to vehicle owners once a final court decision is made. Taylor Barth, KOMU 8 News, Columbia.